Welcome to Service Titans, the podcast where we dive deep into the inspiring journeys of Black men within the AmeriCorps community. From serving in classrooms to rebuilding neighborhoods, these are the stories of passion, purpose, and resilience. Join us as we amplify the voices of members of the AmeriCorps community and share their triumphs, challenges, and the impact they've made in their communities. Whether you're a seasoned AmeriCorps veteran or someone considering service, this is the space to explore, reflect, and be inspired. Get ready to be uplifted, empowered, and connected. This is Service Titans.
Welcome to Service Titans, the show where we delve deep into the stories, experiences, and insights of remarkable individuals who are making a difference in their communities and beyond. I'm your host, Anton Taylor, and on this month's episode, our guest is Gabriel Hamilton, an innovative and solutions-oriented professional with a strong background in education, community development, and global service. Gabriel's journey has taken him around the world, from teaching English in Shanghai and Thailand to mentoring young minds at Virginia Beach. He's worked with diverse student populations, including those with special needs, and has led impactful work in Los Angeles to improve student literacy and family engagement. His passion for service extends to volunteering across Latin America, truly making Gabriel a true embodiment of global citizenship. So join me in welcoming Gabriel Hamilton to the show. Thanks for joining, Gabriel.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
So I would love to just jump right in to the conversation, particularly as we talk about AmeriCorps. So would love to know what initially drew you to AmeriCorps amongst the abundance of the service experience that you have. And can you share a little bit about how that has sort of helped your mission and supported your mission around service?
Thank you. So what led me to AmeriCorps was me looking online or looking internally as a person as for what I wanted to do to make ends meet, of course. Prior to that, I was working in sales and I had transitioned from my sales job and I enjoyed the experience. I enjoyed being put in an uncomfortable environment, being that it was something new. And whenever you're in sales, whether it's corporate sales or you could be selling door-to-door items or whatever the case may be, I feel like you're putting yourself out there, you're vulnerable, open, and you receive feedback instantaneously. It's right there. You're getting feedback from your client, you're getting feedback from management or your sales manager, you're getting feedback from your peers. So there's a lot of self-correcting, self-effacing moments that you encounter in those moments. So I'm glad I had that experience, but I didn't want to do it long-term. So I was looking for a way to connect with people. I had a background in community development, community engagement, working with people, and going on serviceyear.org or one of those websites, I found the AmeriCorps position for reading partners. Had a passion for reading as a youth. I grew up reading Magic Tree House books or Harry Potter books or whatever the case may be. And I was into fantasy and fiction and also, nonfiction as well. But I definitely delved into books as a way to expand my horizons and to see the world in a more open-ended or imaginative lens. So yeah, it led to me applying. I got in contact with you in a roundabout way when I guess I first sent in my resume or CV, and you kind of gave me an understanding of or an overview of what AmeriCorps does with reading partners. And that kind of started off the journey this was around COVID time. So around early 2021, I started to make that transition. And by that fall, I was in Los Angeles doing my only service year at AmeriCorps. So yeah, reading partners took it off. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I know when we reconnected, I didn't realize that you and I were part of that initial connection during that pandemic time. And I'm glad that you're able to do that year of service. And I definitely can say, being in sales, you'll get used to know pretty soon. So it's definitely a great way to understand how to adapt to know, and then that can be a skill set that can go anywhere. But as you were talking about what drew you to AmeriCorps, you mentioned the idea of needing to find something to continue to make ends meet. And I know in a lot of ways in this AmeriCorps arena that it can be in some ways an opportunity that's selected for those who can quote unquote afford to do a year service.
Yeah.
Can you speak to a little bit about what were some of the pain points of your experience as an AmeriCorps member? And I dive a little bit deeper into that, and particularly, I think it's from my experience being in AmeriCorps, there's room for growth, as particularly as we talk about representation, having more Black men in this space. Was there any impact that you can sort of put your finger on, whether good or bad, just from your experience, both with the idea of having to make ends meet, but also realizing that there's not as much representation in this space that we ultimately know is important?
Okay, so those are two big questions. I'll try to tackle both of them. The first one was, what were the pain points, or what did I notice as far as making ends meet? I think the concept of philanthropy and charity as a whole is something to be looked at, right? Because it's being aware of a problem or problems that you know are existing that shouldn't exist in the first place if you have or an excess of resources or an excessive amount of money or anything like that. If you're in a position of power, it's the whole concept of having non-for-profit organizations, 501c3s, tax exempt forms of building companies or building organizations that are rooted in solving a problem, but yet the problem never ultimately is solved. And you find out that that is a part of the 501c3 or the nonprofit structure, is to masquerade or actually, be held together by people who genuinely want to help and solve these problems. But the structuring of these organizations, air quotes, are these charities or these foundations or whatever. They could be religious groups or they could be educational groups or all kinds of fronts for ways that, hey, I am in a position of power, I am in a higher position, and I am giving back, or I am helping the less fortunate. That sounds great in theory, but if you really wanted to solve the problem of the less fortunate, then address what is less in the first place.
So many layers.
Yeah, exactly. Like why are we not going directly into the source or the root of these issues and correcting them? And I think that ties into your second question, the lack of representation. I would go into what are we representing? What was the representation that we currently see? I don't want to be seen as a token. I don't want to be tokenized. I don't want to be other person who is not white, who wants to be upheld on some platform. Like, look at what we're doing for you. We are allowing you to work with us, or we are allowing you to socialize with us. We are allowing you to have this opportunity so we can exploit your resources or your talent or your time, right? Your time and your energy. So having non-white people in these spaces might appeal to a black, brown, yellow, beige, whatever color person on the surface, but it never addresses what the core issue is. The core issue is there is a supremacy in this power dynamic, and in order for somebody to be supreme or above, there has to be somebody below or persons below. And you are fixed into this. You are trapped into this. You have been born into this. And by us not addressing this system or this inadequacy or this injustice, I'm essentially playing in your face, or I'm deceiving you. I'm confusing you. I'm presenting you with a platform or an opportunity in which you are thinking you are doing something good, in which I believe AmeriCorps or nonprofits are genuinely held together.
The root of it is intended in service and goodness. Yep.
Right. It is rooted in all of those words. And when I think about our monthly meetings, I used to really like those. I really enjoyed having those all calls, and I was able to see your face and the lady at the time, I forgot what her name was, but the head of AmeriCorps. You saw non-white faces, you saw white faces, you saw people who were looking to talk about illiteracy or educational achievement gaps and all kinds of, things of the nature, community this, community that. And I believe the people who were doing those things actually from their heart believe that they are doing a service that is needed. It's unfortunate that all of this is happening without addressing what the elephant in the room is, or what the zoo in the room is. And there are these clear understandings of this dynamic that we were all born into. I can't put that on the non-white people to have to deal with this pressure on themselves, or I wouldn't put that on a white person. They were born into a system that has given them some artificial royalty status on planet Earth that they don't have to admit to. They don't have to speak to. They can walk around in a sense of superiority without ever noticing it, or without ever addressing it to you. And that situation or that dynamic puts everybody, all of humanity is at odds, because we haven't solved this problem of white supremacy. We haven't replaced it with justice. We haven't produced justice. And if that problem isn't solved, then all problems amongst the known universe that involves human beings are never going to be the way that they should be. All of the problems, that whether it's an economic problem, an educational problem, entertainment problem, a labor, legal, housing, environment problem, any of these problems that people are facing with, are being faced with in this world as non-white people, that they should not encounter or be involved in. Any problem that shouldn't happen is underneath this system. With our position is that we need to fix this, replace this, produce justice, and dismantle the whole system of white supremacy.
I think as you're sort of speaking there's so many components of that speak to the systemic aspects that are connected to service and giving back, which I think is, like we agree, is the root of AmeriCorps, but also the delicate dance that many of us have to try to approach these under this umbrella of service, of being mindful of the larger systemic impacts, but also understanding in the here and now that the cause that we're behind is ultimately to help people, and most times who look like you and I. So I definitely understand that there's so many systemic pieces of it that as you're going through that year of service, that we have to sort of balance that and understand how do we keep that mission front and center, but also understanding that oftentimes those that we're quote unquote placating to are not dealing with the same levels of trauma and things that have impacted our communities in so many ways historically. So yeah, I definitely understand and can hear the passion as you're sort of speaking to the layers of impact that are sort of under this service umbrella. But I think in the midst of all of that, Gabriel, is what's really interesting, as you sort of shared your profile and we introduced your experience to the group, that you have such a wide array of experience, particularly when we talk about students from diverse communities. Would you mind speaking to a little bit about your approach over the years that you've worked with students from diverse backgrounds and those of diverse segments of needs and experiences? And like, how has that impacted you as you continue to lean into your service journey and your career pathway?
Great question. Well, one, I would highlight that term diverse. We have to be very careful with words, because words are used as tools. These tools can be used to produce a constructive result or produce a non-constructive result. So I want to ensure that words aren't used for confusion, which they can be engineered to be, right? Or be used for confusion, particularly amongst the non-white people, right? So if I'm using the term diverse populations, what would be the non-diverse population, or what would be the non-diverse approach to things? If there's a business that says we champion diversity, what were they championing before diversity? Where, now that we are diverting from something, where are we going? Diverting from what to what, and the purpose of what, right? So that's my whole take on, if somebody says diverse could be different. If we are classifying the non-white people as different, then we're saying that what is normal is pretty much white supremacy. Essentially, that's really what we're saying. So even me being in China or being in Japan or Colombia or Argentina or all these places, the system of white supremacy is intact. And that's 100%. That's a fact, right? So what I have found is that whenever I'm in places like Thailand, it was really interesting. I'm teaching there, and this is my first time teaching. I'm out of college. I'm maybe 23, 24 years old, and I'm with Thai students, right? This is, they're from Thailand. And one of the biggest concepts for them at second grade, and you're probably 7 years old, 8 years old at this time, even before that, first graders or third graders, these are kids 6, 7, 8 years old. They are stuck on the concept of white and black, white people, black people, and they're Thai. So they're not white persons, or they wouldn't be black people, but they will be classified as non-white in the system of white supremacy. So you have non-white people who were totally enthralled or in awe, or maybe not just in awe, but they were forcibly invested in this system of racism, white supremacy, without them actually being around large amounts of white people or large amount of black people. Yet they were still understanding that these people who were here to teach, or these curriculums that people were bringing from England or America or Canada, Australia, all these places, the understanding was that these people who are white are able to give me something that I cannot receive here, right? From people that look like me or people who are darker than me. They definitely can't help me. But these people who are classified as white can and
provide the help I need.
They can provide the help that I need. So what I found out before I even joined AmeriCorps or any Peace Corps or any Doctors Without Borders or any of these groups of people that go around to help solve problems, this system of white supremacy is intact every day, 24/7, 7 days a week, because they are showing up or being seen by the non-white people as saviors, right? So they don't have to call themselves white supremacists. They are white saviors. They are already approached that way. It's already
ingrained. Yeah, that's the part of it.
Ingrained. It's already programmed. It is like a virus that is already in your computer, but you just bought it from the store and you're just turning it on, but yet it has a virus or a software that's running on white supremacy. You can't go anywhere on planet Earth without seeing it. So the non-white people are directly or indirectly at all times responding to this. So I noticed when I was in Thailand or even when I was in China, people exalted or raised their opinions of those who were presented as white simply by almost like this running narrative, this global narrative, this global marketing campaign that has projected itself to every person on planet Earth that says that people who are white essentially are better at everything that they do than the non-white people, right? So there was times where people were not as educated or they didn't have the same credentials, they didn't have a college degree, but were still able to teach in places like in Thailand just by being white, because there was this halo effect behind them. They could come in, they could almost do no wrong. They could exploit the area. They could exploit the people. Not all people, of course, did this. Of course, they could have been people who were just nice, having a good time. But I noticed very, very early that I had to be aware of the racial dynamic as much as people who are Black. I know you mentioned earlier, like lack of Black men or lack of Black faces or lack of inclusion. These words like inclusion or equity or equality or all of these terms can be used as tools of confusion, because equal to who? Equitable to what? Right? Diverting from what to what in order to get to what? If none of these answers equal up to constructive results or producing justice, and my version of justice, or what I've learned from Mr. Fuller, is justice is guaranteeing that no person on planet Earth is mistreated. That's a guarantee. And guaranteeing that the persons that need help the most get the most constructive help, right? So if we can produce justice, then we wouldn't have all of these words like disenfranchisement or marginalized people or unhoused people or less fortunate or diverse groups. None of these words would exist, because there wouldn't be any difference between a white person's access to resources than a non-white person's. But there is in this system, right? There is a drop off. I mean, a person doesn't have to tell you that I know that living on planet Earth as a white person is significantly better than living on planet Earth as a non-white person, regardless of my educational status, regardless of my economic status, regardless if I have a criminal background or not. I mean, nobody who is white is trading places with a non-white person because of what they know to be true.
Gabriel, as you're highlighting your experience both abroad and in AmeriCorps, it really speaks in a lot of ways to a guest we had on earlier who had a very somewhat similar service experience. And he talked a lot about the transitions from serving abroad to AmeriCorps. Can you speak to that a little bit? As you were talking, you mentioned the similarities of serving abroad, particularly the idea of white supremacy and how that sort of shows up. But are there some other layers there that you can speak to in some ways as you talk about your experience both serving abroad and serving with AmeriCorps here in the States?
Yeah, great question. Just to bridge the gap, I believe that when servicing abroad, whether I was doing volunteer works, you mentioned something earlier about being able or fortunate enough to even have or serve in an AmeriCorps service year. Like, you need to have a certain amount of wealth in order to be a quote unquote good citizen or a charitable person. In order to work for a nonprofit, you almost have to be quote unquote middle class, or you actually have to have, your housing already taken care of. Your transportation needs to be taken care of. If there's like a tidbit or pain point that you can address to like whoever the C-suite executive or whoever the stakeholders are of this nonprofit, you could ask them or inquire how to bring the resources that are the most prominent when somebody is paid money, or when somebody talks about what are your highest expenses to live on planet Earth. I would say it would probably be housing would be number one, transportation, food, these types of things, and I feel like if AmeriCorps wanted to help people, then you wouldn't have to have, a house in LA or in San Francisco or the Bay Area to be able to go into these communities and give your time and energy and make $20,000, which is less than what you would make at McDonald's or Starbucks. Like, in order for you to do these types of things, I know I've talked to somebody who did a conservation corps or something like this, and they were into like a house. It was a group of them, but they had housing that was provided. I don't think it was free, of course, and nothing is free, but at least they had a house where maybe that was involved, maybe that was included in their program. Maybe that was a part of their stipend instead of structuring it like a salary, whatever the business ways of structuring these contracts in order to get people like myself to serve. And there were some good things from it, of course, right? I mean, I didn't make big money, but I was able to use that educational grant or that Siegel Award to fund my volunteer experiences in Latin America. Like, that was something that I didn't know going into that, right? So I was struggling in LA, living in a bunk bed with 30 plus, 40 plus people in this group kind of home, which is all over probably places in the Bay Area and Los Angeles because of how expensive it is. And it's like doing what I can to make ends meet. I had there was no privacy for me. Like, I had 3 people that lived in my room. Like, I was in like a dorm room my whole time there in LA. And that comes with like growth and development. I'm not saying like that's a bad thing. That just showed like,
I hear you.
And you don't have, I'm in a shared bathroom, I'm in shared kitchen spaces, I'm in a shared bedroom. Like, I have to do all of this because gas is over $5 and I get paid $20,000 a month. You know what I mean? $20,000 a year. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, that's real stuff. Like, you have to deal with outside of your service time. How do you sustain and maintain and have a living circumstance that you feel comfortable in? So no, I definitely understand that in so many ways.
Yeah, that could have changed the game. If AmeriCorps wants to get more, I guess to sum it up, if AmeriCorps wants more service members, they're going to have to do something to meet those folks in the middle with what their big expenditures are. If you're going to have AmeriCorps in New York City or Oakland or San Fran or Berkeley or LA, San Diego, and you know that a 1-bedroom apartment is $3,000 and that's with a straight face, that's like anywhere you go, 2,500, 3,500. And it's like, what are we making? Like, everything else is going up except your salary. Everything else is going up except your, stipend on gas or transportation. Like $6. There was times I was filling up my tank. It was getting over $100. I couldn't pay my phone bill. That's like either I'm paying my phone or I'm putting gas in my truck. And I had to put gas in my truck to get to work.
Get to service. Yeah.
Right. Like, and if I'm in LA, going to Pasadena might be 13, 14 miles. But for people who are about that West Coast life, 14 miles could be an hour one
Yeah,
way,
no,
13
living on
miles.
living on the West Coast, I definitely could identify with that. And it's so real and authentic, the pain points that you're talking about. As the AmeriCorps alum who served several years ago, when things weren't so costly, I could identify with those pain points and still continuing to show up each day to be there for the mission, but also recognizing that there are things that you need as an individual to sustain both in the here and now and long term. And I wonder, as we talk about those experiences, Gabriel, like, as the hope is that we continue to engage others who are on the cusp of considering whether a career or year of service to consider AmeriCorps as an option, or to be real with folks about AmeriCorps not being a sustainable option. Like, so what would be some things that you would say to those who are on the cusp of considering taking this journey of being an AmeriCorps member, or just this pathway of a career in the nonprofit sector? Are there any words of wisdom or things that you would recommend for those, particularly Black men who are considering taking this journey that you and I have taken?
Well, I don't have any words of wisdom or anything like that, just because I'm still learning. That's where I am in this journey. I'm still learning. For the people who would like to experience what the nonprofit world is like, or community service oriented roles where you aren't feeling as if you need to draw a profit or turn a profit, or if you're not focused on making large amounts of money, but you want to create an impact with humans and solve human problems, and you want to produce justice, or you want to bring about the production of justice by problem solving, I would say the best thing to focus on is replace the system of white supremacy with justice, with the system of justice. Understand what the system of white supremacy is and how it functions. If you don't know what that is and how it functions, racism, white supremacy, then everything that you think you know on planet Earth will serve to confuse you. That is not something that I'm making up. That is something under the counter-racist compensatory code that I followed from Mr. Neely Fuller. So I believe the first and foremost plan for any person, whether you are white or non-white, is to address this systemic problem and replace it with justice. Then, and only then, where all of the problems or all of the issues, whether they're educational, economic issues, labor issues, healthcare issues, legal issues, political, religious issues, sexual issues, all kind of relationship-based issues, all of your problems will be solved once you address the overarching umbrella that has been looming over the heads of non-white people for, let's say, 800 to 1,000 years, right? So, like, we have that problem to solve. And it can be solved, because all problems in the known universe can be solved, or they wouldn't be solved, or they wouldn't be problems in the first place, right? So every problem has a solution. That's my light at the end of the tunnel, is that, the same people that are maintaining the system can be the same people that dismantle the system, right? The same person that knows what it means to be a white person, they know exactly what it means to maintain the system, because they don't want to be what a non-white person is. So in this scenario, a white person can solve the system of white supremacy in under 5 minutes, right? They've been living their whole life as a white person, right? So, this is something very direct that we can address. But yeah, going into AmeriCorps or any of the nonprofit sectors, you're going to learn something. Or if it's not nonprofit, anytime you're relating to humans, you're going to learn something. And I think you should be in question mode. I think whenever you are speaking with people, you should ensure that somebody's not telling you something that's not true. And if you are confused on something, ask questions. I think that's the best tidbit of information that I can give, particularly, you said, to a Black male. If you're a Black male in the system of white supremacy, you need to be a problem solver above anything. In order to understand what it means to be a Black person on planet Earth, it essentially means to be pushed around by the system of white supremacy. That is exactly what that means, to be a Black person. So I don't want anybody to walk around projecting their Blackness to the world. First of all, the color of your skin is shown before you even say a word. So what you should be thinking about is how you solve this problem, because if people judge you based on how they see you, then the world is anti-Black and white supremacist through and through. You can go to Asia, you can go to Latin America. I can't tell you what it's like in Africa, But I can tell you that there ain't no problems being fixed over there unless it's coming from a white person.
Yeah, I think, as you're sort of sharing there, I really love the idea of saying, be a person who's comfortable asking questions and being inquisitive and not just sort of settling for quote unquote the status quo. And I think whether that's in AmeriCorps, whatever you're doing, that's something that you should lead with, is being someone who's always questioning and always being one who's not accepting of whatever the circumstances may be. And I think that gives me a good way to sort of segue as we sort of start to bring things to a conclusion. Is I know in our journeys that we've all encountered individuals who have, in some ways, small or big, who may have had a lasting impact on us. And what we call this segment is sort of the shine a light segment of our podcast, where you sort of say, I see you and I appreciate you. And I want to give you an opportunity, Gabriel, to highlight a service titan in your life, someone that you want to shine a light on, who's had an impact on you, whether small or big. So if there's a service titan that you'll like to highlight, please share that with our audience.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate that. And first of all, thank you, Mr. Taylor, for just creating this platform for people who need it the most, whether it's going to be for Black males or whether it's any person who listens to your platform. This is constructive information that could be used for constructive purposes. And that's exactly what we need. And that's exactly how we're going to solve this global systemic injustice, by having more exchanges like we have here, dialogues that help us problem solve, the exchange of views to build something, construct something, design something, problem solve. That is really the key. So my service person or service titan that I want to give a shout out to would be probably a reverend or a deacon at my church, who works with my parents. And he's been the lead into bringing me into the mentorship programs that I've done here in Virginia Beach. We go to different schools, elementary schools, and we mentor young students, a lot of the students who are actually having maybe some behavioral issues or educational challenges. We're working with those kids, and we're instilling confidence and pretty much SEL lessons, social emotional learning tools through chess. So there's chess programs, and this individual name is Mr. Eric Revis, and he's had this program for quite some time. And it's just, mentorship, coaching. He's been a consistent person that I use as a reference whenever I apply for jobs. I've done work through, children's church with him. And we go to different people's homes, whether they're elderly in the church family, people who can't do handy jobs or solve landscaping problems. He's a part of those communities that go out there, and we might, take a group of men and we'll paint somebody's, fence or cut some grass, pull weeds, do some spring cleaning, do things of that nature. And he's been like that for as long as I've known him. And it's just people like that who are these heroes that are right in front of your face, who are problem solving, who are giving back to the community, and they're not asking for a dime. They're not doing this for a plaque, or they're not putting us on the gram. These are just,
doing it for the love, like they're doing it for the fact of people and putting people first. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Gabriel, I appreciate you for highlighting that. And I think, closing in that way, highlighting someone, as you mentioned, is not doing it for the clout, not doing it for the attention, particularly in a time where everyone seems to want to do things for whatever their own personal attention grabbing reasons may be. So I thank you for helping us close in that way. And Gabriel, I again thank you so much for this conversation. There's so much here that can be helpful for our audience, whether they're considering AmeriCorps, but just in general, how we should be mindful of the context of the things that are sort of impacting how we move and the decisions that we make consciously or subconsciously. So with that, I would ask for everyone to continue to keep the conversation flowing, keep service front and center, and continue shining bright in your communities. This is Service Titans, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for joining us as we explored the inspiring journeys of Black men in AmeriCorps. Keep the conversation going by connecting with us on social media. Until next time, stay committed, stay courageous, and keep striving to make a difference. This is Service Titans, where every story told is a testament to the power of service. Thank you for listening.